If you are just starting your health and fat loss expedition, maybe you haven't started yet, maybe you're thinking of starting, let me share something with you very quickly. Knowledge isn't going to be your power. Your power on your health and fat loss expedition is going to be action. And what I mean by that is, so many people say knowledge is power. And whilst I do agree, having knowledge about how fat loss works and what you need to do in order for fat loss progress to take place, you have to have that information. You have to have that knowledge. But none of that is going to happen, and there's going to be no progress if you don't action what you know. On that note, welcome to today's episode of the Mandy Meyer podcast. As per usual, this is the podcast where I chat all about your health and fat loss and your progress on your health and fat loss expedition, or how you can achieve that progress. Knowledge is not power. You actioning that knowledge, you taking action with what you know you need to do when it comes to health and fat loss, that is going to be your superpower. I'm going to ask you a question now. How many free fat loss ebooks have you downloaded over the last several years? How many free low-calorie recipe books have you downloaded in the last several years? How many free 30-day workout plans have you downloaded in the last several years? Now, how many of those have you actually used to help you on your health and fat loss expedition? Yes, maybe you've paged through a couple of them. Yes, maybe they've sparked motivation every now and again. And for some of you, maybe they have even helped. Who knows? But for majority of people out there, any of this free information that you get or you download is stored in the I'll do it later bank, and then it never gets done. Because it's one thing having the information, but it's a total different thing executing that information, actioning that information. And the gap between having the information and the execution of the information is quite a massive gap. If you're struggling with the actioning or the executing part of any of this information, please remember that I have a private coaching community, and the intake for that is opening on Monday, the 3rd of March. And during this episode of the podcast, you might start understanding why you maybe haven't started executing that information that you do have, and why having a coach like myself or being part of a coaching community like mine can be the kick up the bum that you need to get action in. Now, let's say, for example, you have all the information. You know exactly how fat loss takes place, because let's be real, majority of you out there have a very good understanding of how fat loss takes place. So you have that information. You have low calorie recipe books. Maybe you've got a generic workout plan at home that you've downloaded from somewhere. Now, there's a couple of things that could be happening with that information that you have got. Number one, either you've just stored it in the I'll do it later bank and you've never got around to doing it because there's no pressure from an external person or even from yourself saying, hey, when are you going to start? So that information just lies around there for several years. And maybe you look at it every single Monday or Sunday and you're like, oh, I'll start tomorrow. And then you never actually start. Or number two, you could have very good intentions to start executing that information. And maybe you do start actioning that information. Or maybe you start actioning what you have to do in order to achieve fat loss. But because all that information is in bits and bobs all over the place, maybe, just maybe, you are not 100% sure on how to action this information. So now you're doing it, but maybe you're doing it in a manner that is not optimal for sustainable fat loss. Maybe you're doing it in a manner that overwhelms you and you just can't adhere to it. So I'm not saying everyone out there has the information and is doing nothing about it. Maybe, just maybe, you are doing something about it, but you're not sure in which order to implement the information, or whether you're doing it in a sustainable manner. And like I said, you can have all the information in the world, but it's on you to start actioning that information. And if you have all that information and you have been actioning that information, but you're losing motivation, or you have no idea in what order to action that information, or you just don't know if it's correct and all of that is standing in the way of your fat loss progress, then maybe, just maybe, you should contemplate joining my coaching community so that myself and the rest of the members can help you action that information, either to get you started, that kick up the bum that you need, or to guide you in the right direction. Because remember, oftentimes guidance is far more important than 1 or 2 lower calorie recipes in order for you to know that what you are doing is correct. I get so many people sliding into my DM saying, Mandy, I know what to do. I just don't know how to start. And that's exactly what I mean. You have all the information, but you're not actioning anything. Or, Mandy, I have all the information, I know what to do, I've started doing it, but I've hit a wall. I've hit a weight loss plateau. I don't know how much protein to be eating. I don't know if the steps that I'm doing are optimal for fat loss. How do I proceed from here? And that, my friends, is questions that you can be asking in my coaching community, so that you don't get stuck with having all the knowledge, not doing anything about it, or doing something about it, but then getting stuck and giving up. The reason why I've touched so much about my coaching community within this episode is because I really want you to understand that there's a big difference between having free information and having someone in your corner guiding you every single step of the way. Imagine sitting on all this information that you have, this gold mine of information, but either you haven't started executing it several years later, or you're still struggling several years later because you just don't know if what you're doing is correct or not. Now, this is not me saying sign up to my coaching community. You are all adults, you can make your own decisions, but I really want you to sit and think about it for a moment. Do you still want to be having that information, not executing that information, or still struggling several years down the line? But what I actually came to tell you today in this episode of the podcast is just start actioning things. Stop waiting. Stop downloading absolutely every single thing that is for free online and start holding yourself accountable for your actions or the lack thereof, and actually start doing. There is no way that you are going to progress on your health and fat loss expedition if you are not actioning things that align with your goals, habits that align with your goals. There is no way that you are going to progress if you keep telling yourself, I will start next Monday, and then next Monday comes and you don't start, and that vicious cycle continues for a couple of years. Whatever you want to work on, whatever goal you want to achieve, start working on it today. Stop delaying it. The more you delay something, the longer it's going to take you to achieve progress, to achieve results. That difficult thing that you have to do today, but you postpone to do it tomorrow or the day thereafter, guess what? Yeah, you didn't do it today, but you still have to do it tomorrow or the day thereafter. Get it done now. Just think about this for the moment. It's the year 2025, and maybe your weight is a struggle. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you have all that information, but you're not doing anything about it. Maybe you want to sign up for my coaching community because you need that help, support, guidance, reassurance, and accountability, but you keep delaying it because you'll try and do it by yourself. But maybe it doesn't always work out that way. Do you really want to be sitting 5 years down the line in the year 2030, still struggling the same struggles because you've delayed, you've postponed, and then you never got around to doing it? I don't think so. Tackle this thing now. Use the information that you have, start actioning things. Implement strategies that are going to help you see progress on your health and fat loss expedition. Do whatever you have to do to get it started now. You don't need the perfect plan to get started. You don't need the right time to get started. You don't need the perfect pair of tackies or walking shoes to go for that walk. What you need is the self-control and the discipline to start today. Because the more you delay it, the longer it's going to take. And if you need someone in your corner guiding you every single step of the way, accountability, reassurance, support, you know where to find me. There's a link in the bio. Use it, don't use it, totally up to you. But don't be sitting 5 years down the line, beating yourself up, wishing that you had started sooner. YouTube thinks you'll like this video. So do I. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who just called a spade, Mandy.